A starving 14-year-old girl begs biker Lucas Morrison to buy her rusted bike in a storm-soaked parking lot. Then he sees the initials on the frame. His brother's, dead 12 years. She hands him a photo. His brother alive, chained, tortured. The message on back reads, "Trust the girl. She's yours." Before Lucas can process that this stranger is his daughter, black SUVs block both exits. Her phone buzzes, 48 hours. Bring the girl, or your brother dies. Armed contractors emerge from the vehicles. The girl whispers, "Mom's dying. Uncle Derek said you're the only one who can save us." Lucas has 30 seconds to decide. Escape with the daughter he never knew existed, or lose everyone. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are watching from in the comments. Enjoy the story. The Glock felt heavier than it should. Lucas Morrison had carried that weight for 20 years. Through border runs that ended in blood, through bar fights where the wrong word meant a knife between your ribs, through the kind of nights that taught you the universe didn't care if you lived or died. But tonight, parked under a dying Chevron sign in East Atlanta while rain hammered his Harley like the sky was trying to drown the world, the gun against his ribs felt like an anchor dragging him towards something he couldn't name. Something that felt like fate wearing a mask. He should have kept riding. Should have ignored the abandoned gas station, the flickering neon casting red shadows across cracked asphalt. Should have trusted the instinct that had kept him alive through 2 decades with the Hells Angels. The instinct currently screaming that stopping here, in this place, at this moment, would change everything. But the rain had turned violent, visibility down to maybe 20 feet, and even Lucas Morrison wasn't stupid enough to ride a Harley at 70 miles per hour through a storm that looked like God's own temper tantrum. So he killed the engine, let the silence settle around him like a held breath. And that's when he saw her. A ghost, a memory, a impossibility standing beneath that dying neon sign like she'd been waiting her entire life for him to arrive. 14, maybe 15 years old. Soaked to the bone. Her clothes hanging off a frame too thin, too fragile, like she'd been carved from something more desperate than flesh. Her hands gripped the handlebars of a mountain bike that looked older than she was, rusted, battered, held together by duct tape and sheer stubborn will. But it was her eyes that stopped Lucas cold. He'd seen a lot of eyes. Dead eyes that stared through you. Lying eyes that promised things they'd never deliver. Eyes that begged. Eyes that threatened. Eyes that calculated your worth in seconds and found you wanting. These were different. These were the eyes of someone who'd already lost everything and was betting the last chip on a table rigged against her from birth. Eyes that held terror and determination in equal measure. Eyes that reminded him, painfully, of the man he used to see in the mirror before the world taught him that hope was just another word for weakness. "Buy my bike, sir." Her voice cut through the rain, steady despite the tremor running through her entire body. Not from cold, from something deeper. Something that lived in the marrow and refused to let go even when every rational thought said you should just lie down and let the darkness win. Lucas stayed on the Harley, one hand moving instinctively toward the Glock. Not threatening, just ready. Always ready. "Mom hasn't eaten in 3 days." The words hit him harder than he expected. Not because they were shocking. He'd heard every variation of desperation these streets had to offer. Kids running scams for their dealers. Addicts spinning tales elaborate as operas to score their next fix. Hustlers who could cry on command and make you believe your wallet was the only thing standing between them and salvation. But this girl wasn't hustling. She'd already calculated the exact value of her desperation and rounded down to account for reality. Lucas swung off the Harley, rain immediately soaking through his leather cut, the patches marking him as property of the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club bleeding water like they were weeping. His boots splashed through puddles reflecting fractured neon as he moved closer. Thunder rolled overhead. Lightning followed, and in that brief electric moment, Lucas saw details that made his blood run cold. Bruises on her wrists, dark purple-black, shaped like fingers. Someone had grabbed her, held her, hurt her with intention and force. A hospital bracelet, white plastic peeking from beneath her soaked sleeve. Grady Memorial Hospital. Dated 2 days ago. The way she stood, protective, almost defiant, over that bike, like it was the only thing between her and complete annihilation. Like losing it meant losing herself. "What's your name?" "Amelia." The name hit him strange. Familiar somehow, though he couldn't place why. Lucas nodded slowly, his tactical mind already running calculations, threat assessment, escape routes, probability. This was a setup. His hand moved to his jacket, reaching for his wallet. But as his fingers brushed worn leather, his eyes caught something that made the entire world tilt sideways and fall off its axis. The bike's frame, custom welded. Military-grade precision. The kind of work that came from years of practice, from hands that understood metal like a language, from someone who'd learned their craft in places where sloppy work meant people died. Lucas had seen this work before, had watched those hands create it. He dropped to one knee, ignoring the puddles soaking through his jeans, rain pouring down his neck, and ran his fingers along the frame's underside. His heart was hammering now, blood rushing in his ears loud enough to drown out the thunder. There, hidden beneath the seat, barely visible through rust and grime, protected by deliberate obscurity. Initials, engraved with a Dremel tool in a garage in Chicago on a summer night 15 years ago when the world had been simpler and brothers had been invincible and death had been something that happened to other people. DM, Derek Morrison, his brother, missing for 12 years. Black Ops mission in Afghanistan that went wrong, went dark, went silent forever. The government had delivered a flag-draped coffin, a folded flag that now sat in Lucas's closet gathering dust, and a story about heroism and sacrifice that had felt hollow even at the funeral. But this bike, Lucas had helped Derek build this bike, had held the frame steady while Derek welded the joints with hands steadier than a surgeon's. Had watched his little brother hide those initials in that exact spot, laughing about how no one would ever steal a bike they couldn't prove existed. There was no way this girl could have this bike unless. "Where did you get this?" Lucas's voice had changed, no longer cautious. This was something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something that sounded like hope wrapped in razor wire and dipped in gasoline. Amelia stepped back, fear replacing desperate courage in her eyes. Her hand moved to her pocket, not for a weapon, Lucas's instincts told him, for something else. Something she'd been carrying like a talisman against the darkness closing in from all sides. "My dad gave it to me." Her voice cracked. Before they took him, the rain seemed to quiet. The thunder seemed to pause. Everything in Lucas's universe, 20 years of violence and brotherhood and survival, contracted down to this single moment, this single girl, this single impossible statement. Who took him? Amelia's hand emerged from her pocket, clutching something protected in a Ziploc bag. A photograph, creased and worn, handled so many times the edges had gone soft. Lucas grabbed it. His hands were always steady. Steady when he pulled the trigger. Steady when he patched up brothers bleeding out on the side of the road. Steady when the world went to hell and everyone else was screaming. But now they trembled as he held the photograph up to the dying neon light. The image destroyed him. A man, skeletal, hollow-eyed, chained to a concrete wall in what looked like a basement or cell, shadows and despair thick enough to choke on. His face was covered in an unkempt beard, his body reduced to angles and suffering, his eyes carrying the kind of weight that broke most men after a week, let alone what must have been years. But Lucas recognized him. Recognized the scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood baseball accident. Recognized the way he held his shoulders even in chains, even in hell, even when hope should have died 1,000 days ago. Recognized his little brother, the kid who'd followed him around like a shadow, who'd enlisted because he wanted to be a hero, who'd promised he'd come home. Derek. Alive. His little brother was alive. Lucas flipped the photograph with shaking hands. On the back, written in handwriting he'd recognize anywhere despite the shakiness, despite the desperation bleeding through every letter. "Trust the girl. She's yours. Save Sarah. D." The words rewrote reality. Trust the girl. She's yours. Lucas looked up at Amelia, really looked at her this time. Not seeing a desperate kid with a bike. Seeing the shape of her jaw, the color of her eyes, The way she stood with weight on her left foot, the same unconscious stance Lucas used. Features that could have been his own staring back at him from a mirror 15 years younger. "Who's your mother?" The question came out strangled, barely audible over the rain. "Dr. Sarah Chun." Amelia's voice was small now, younger than her years. She worked for the CDC in Atlanta, until she discovered something she wasn't supposed to know. Something about a program called Phoenix Protocol. Sarah Chun. The name hit Lucas like a freight train loaded with 15 years of regrets. Atlanta. A medical conference his mother had dragged him to back when he was 23 and stupid and still trying to figure out who he was before the Hells Angels gave him purpose and direction and brothers. A brilliant young researcher who'd smiled at him across a hotel bar with eyes that made him forget every reason he had for keeping his distance from anything that felt permanent. 3 nights. 3 perfect nights of connection and conversation, and the kind of intimacy that scared him enough to get on his bike and ride back to Chicago without leaving a number, without calling, without looking back, because commitment felt like a cage, and he'd been too young and too stupid to know the difference between freedom and cowardice. "No." The word came out broken. "That's not. I didn't know. She never told you." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. She tried, but they found her first. "The people from Phoenix Protocol. They told her if she ever contacted you, if she ever told you about me, they'd kill you. So she stayed silent, kept me secret, kept you alive." Lucas couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 14 years. This girl, his daughter, had existed for 14 years while he'd been riding with the Hells Angels, making runs, living a life that had felt meaningful but now seemed hollow as an empty grave. Mom discovered they're developing a pathogen. Amelia continued, words tumbling out faster now. Something called Phase 2. They're planning to release it in 6 cities. 2 million people will die. She tried to expose them. They captured her 3 days ago. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands, started to pull up something. An address, Lucas assumed. Somewhere Sarah was hiding. Somewhere they could. The phone buzzed. A text message appeared on the screen. Amelia's face went white, all color draining like someone had opened a valve and let her hope bleed out onto the pavement. She turned the phone so Lucas could read it. Sarah Chun captured. 48 hours until execution. Bring the girl to CDC facility or your brother dies too. Colonel Vance. Lucas's blood turned to ice. Headlights appeared at both ends of the parking lot. 2 black SUVs, moving fast, blocking both exits. Professional. Coordinated. The kind of response that meant government money and people who didn't leave witnesses. They had maybe 30 seconds. Lucas grabbed Amelia's wrist, gently but firm enough she knew he meant business. "Get on. Now." He was already moving toward the Harley, his mind shifting into tactical mode, running calculations on escape routes, pursuit probabilities, how to keep this girl, his daughter, alive long enough to figure out what the hell was happening and how to save his brother and a woman he'd walked away from 15 years ago. Amelia hesitated for just a second, looking at the bike, her father's bike, Derek's bike, the last physical piece of him she had. "Leave it," Lucas commanded. "Derek's alive. That means we can get it back. But only if we survive the next 5 minutes." She ran. Lucas kicked the Harley to life, the engine roaring like a challenge to the storm and the SUVs and the universe itself. Amelia jumped on behind him, her thin arms wrapping around his waist with the desperate grip of someone who knew this was her last chance, her only play, her final bet on a father she'd never met, and a table where the house always won. "Hold tight," Lucas growled. The SUVs accelerated. Lucas twisted the throttle. The Harley launched forward like a missile, tires screaming against wet asphalt. Behind them, car doors opened. Men emerged, contractors in tactical gear, weapons drawn, moving with military precision. But Lucas Morrison hadn't survived 20 years with the Hells Angels by playing it safe. He aimed the bike straight at the narrow gap between the gas station building and a rusted fence, a space maybe 6 inches wider than his handlebars, and committed. They shot through with inches to spare, sparks flying as his mirrors scraped metal. Behind them, the SUVs couldn't follow. Too wide, too heavy, too late. Lucas merged onto the street, rain hammering them, Amelia's grip on his waist the only thing keeping her from sliding off as he took corners at speeds that would have killed most riders. But his mind wasn't on the pursuit anymore. It was on the impossible truth he'd just learned. His brother was alive, in chains, tortured for 12 years. He had a daughter, 14 years old, terrified, running for her life. And the woman he'd walked away from 15 years ago was going to be executed in 48 hours unless he figured out how to stop a government conspiracy that sounded like something out of a nightmare. The chase continued through Atlanta's rain-soaked streets. But Lucas Morrison was done running. It was time to fight back. The clubhouse sat in a forgotten corner of Decatur, wedged between a closed AutoZone and a liquor store that hadn't updated its sign since 1987. To anyone passing by, it looked like exactly what it was supposed to look like, a rundown motorcycle repair shop with bars on the windows and a "No trespassing" sign rusted into illegibility. But Lucas had chosen this place 12 years ago for reasons that went deeper than cheap rent and strategic location. The basement had 3 exits. The walls were reinforced concrete, and the neighborhood had learned long ago that asking questions about the men who came and went at odd hours was a good way to develop sudden amnesia. He killed the Harley's engine in the back alley, rain still coming down in sheets. Behind them, the sound of pursuit had faded, lost in the maze of side streets and industrial zones Lucas knew like the scars on his knuckles. But they'd find this place eventually. Maybe hours, maybe minutes. Time was a luxury they didn't have. Inside, Lucas said, helping Amelia off the bike. She stumbled, adrenaline crash hitting her hard now that they'd stopped moving. He caught her elbow, steadied her, and felt the tremble running through her entire body. His daughter. The thought still didn't feel real. The clubhouse interior smelled like motor oil, cigarettes, and the particular combination of leather and sweat that came from men who lived hard and expected to die harder. Empty now? Lucas had sent the brothers away 3 days ago when things with a deal in Savannah had started feeling wrong. Instinct. The same instinct that had saved his life more times than he could count. He guided Amelia to a battered couch in what passed for the common room, grabbed a blanket from a closet, wrapped it around her shoulders. She was shaking violently now, shock setting in, the adrenaline that had kept her upright in that parking lot finally burning off, and leaving nothing but a terrified 14-year-old who'd been running on empty for God knew how long. "When did you last eat?" Lucas asked, moving to the kitchenette. "Yesterday morning." Her voice was small. "Maybe. I don't remember." Lucas pulled out bread, peanut butter, jelly, the staples of men who didn't cook so much as survive. Made her a sandwich with hands that still carried the muscle memory of making Derek lunch before school, back when they'd been kids, and their biggest problem had been whether Mom would notice they'd skipped homework to work on the bike. The bike that was now sitting in an evidence locker somewhere, if the contractors had bothered to collect it. He handed Amelia the sandwich. She ate like someone who'd forgotten what food tasted like, mechanical and desperate. Lucas grabbed his burner phone. One of 6 he kept in a lockbox, and started making calls. Brothers he trusted. Contacts in places that didn't ask questions. People who owed him favors that went back years. By the time Amelia finished eating, Lucas had secured a safe house in Athens, a vehicle that couldn't be traced, and enough weapons to fight a small war if it came to that. Which it probably would. "Better?" he asked. Amelia nodded, pulling the blanket tighter. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet." Lucas sat across from her, studying this girl who was supposedly his daughter, looking for traces of himself in her features and finding them everywhere. The stubborn set of her jaw, the way her eyes tracked movement even while sitting still, the quiet calculation behind her fear, already thinking 3 moves ahead, already planning contingencies. She was his kid, all right. "I need you to tell me everything," Lucas said. "Start from the beginning. How did you know where to find me?" Amelia's hands twisted in the blanket. "Uncle Derek told me. 2 years ago, before they moved him to a different facility. He'd been watching over us, me and Mom, since I was little, making sure Phoenix Protocol didn't hurt us. But 2 years ago, he knew they were getting suspicious. So he gave me your name. Told me if anything ever happened to Mom, if we ever needed help, I should find Lucas Morrison, my father, The words hit him like a physical blow. Your mother never told me you existed. Because they would have killed you. Amelia's voice cracked. Phoenix Protocol found Mom when I was 2. She'd just gotten recruited to the CDC, youngest lead researcher they'd ever hired. They saw her potential, her brilliance, and they saw leverage. You, me. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. They told her she'd work for them, develop whatever they wanted, and keep her mouth shut. Or they'd make me disappear into foster care under a false identity where she'd never find me. And then, just to make sure she understood, they told her about you. Said if she ever contacted you, if she ever told you I existed, they'd arrange an accident. Make it look random. A motorcycle crash. A bar fight gone wrong. Lucas's fists clenched. 20 years of violence had taught him how to hurt people in ways that left scars. But this was a different kind of rage. Colder. Deeper. The kind that didn't explode, it calculated. So she stayed silent, he said quietly. She stayed silent to keep you alive. Amelia wiped her eyes. And she worked for them. Developed vaccines, studied pathogens, did everything they asked. Until 6 months ago when she discovered what they were really building. Phase 2. Phase 2. Amelia's voice steadied, shifted into something that sounded like her mother. Clinical, precise, horrifying in its clarity. A genetically targeted pathogen. It activates based on specific genetic markers, ethnicity, hereditary conditions, chromosomal variations. They can program it to kill specific populations while leaving others completely untouched. Lucas felt sick. 2 million people in 6 cities. Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, Detroit, Philadelphia. Amelia rattled off the list like she'd memorized it. Target demographics that Phoenix Protocol considers high risk for social instability. That's what they call it. Social instability. Like genocide is just pest control. How do you know all this? Mom told me everything 3 weeks ago, when she realized they were getting close to catching her. She'd been documenting everything. Every test, every communication, every piece of evidence that proved Phoenix Protocol existed and what they were planning. She uploaded it to encrypted servers, hid the access codes where they'd never find them. Where? Amelia's hand moved to her pocket, pulled out a vial filled with dark red liquid. In me. Mom's a geneticist. She used CRISPR technology to encode the access codes into my DNA, buried them in non-coding regions of my genome where they'd look like natural variation. The only way to retrieve them is through my voluntary cooperation. Forced extraction corrupts the data. Lucas stared at the vial. What's that? Mom's bone marrow. She extracted it 3 weeks ago and gave it to me. Said if anything happened, if we got separated, I had to keep it safe. That it was the only thing that could stop Phase 2. I don't understand. Neither do I. Not completely. Amelia's voice trembled. But Mom said the pathogen requires an activation sequence. A biological key that only exists in her genetic code. Without it, Phase 2 can't launch. This bone marrow, Mom said it's modified. Weaponized somehow. If Phoenix Protocol gets it, they can synthesize the activation sequence. But if we destroy it, Phase 2 becomes impossible. The weight of it settled over Lucas like a shroud. His daughter, a 14-year-old girl, had been turned into a living encryption key. And the vial she carried was either salvation or damnation, depending on whose hands it ended up in. Why didn't Derek get you both out? Lucas asked. If he's been watching over you all this time. He tried. Amelia's face crumpled. 6 months ago, when Mom discovered Phase 2. Uncle Derek arranged an extraction. Had everything planned. Fake identities, safe house in Vancouver, new lives. But Colonel Vance figured it out. Caught him before we could leave. Moved him to a black site facility where even his Phoenix Protocol contacts couldn't reach him. And your mom. Kept working. Kept pretending everything was normal. Bought me time to prepare, to memorize everything she'd discovered, to become the backup plan. Amelia looked at Lucas with eyes too old for her face. She chose to sacrifice herself so I could survive long enough to find you. And now they have her. They're going to execute her in 48 hours. Lucas stood, paced, his tactical mind working through angles and options and probabilities. 48 hours to infiltrate a government facility, extract a prisoner, stop a bioweapon launch, and somehow keep his daughter alive through all of it. Impossible odds. But he'd built a life on beating impossible odds. "There's someone who can help," Lucas said, pulling out his phone. "My ex-wife, Nina Rodriguez. She works for the CDC, head of biosecurity." Amelia's eyes widened. "You were married? Long time ago. Ended badly. But Nina..." Lucas hesitated. "Nina knew Derek. After he supposedly died, she was the one who signed his death certificate. She was the one who held me together at the funeral. If Derek's been working with someone inside Phoenix Protocol, if he's had help all these years, it would have been her." He dialed. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered, smoother than he remembered, but carrying the same intelligence that had first attracted him to her 15 years ago. "Lucas Morrison. I was wondering when you'd call." Not surprised. Not confused. Like she'd been expecting this. "Nina, we need to talk." "I know." A pause. "Derek told me you'd figure it out eventually. Told me to wait for your call. He said you'd come with the girl." "With Amelia." Lucas's blood ran cold. "How long have you known?" 8 years. Since Derek recruited me to help him from inside Phoenix Protocol. Since he told me about Sarah, about the daughter you didn't know existed, about the conspiracy we were all trapped in." Nina's voice softened. "I'm sorry, Lucas. For the lies. For the funeral. For letting you think your brother was dead. But it was the only way to keep you safe. Derek insisted. If you knew he was alive, you'd come looking. And Phoenix Protocol would have killed you. They're going to kill Sarah in 48 hours. I know. Derek managed to get a message out yesterday. He's being held in the same facility, level 4, isolation wing. Sarah's on level 3, medical detention. They're keeping them separated so rescue attempts have to choose." "I'm not choosing," Lucas said flatly. "We're getting them both out." "That's impossible. The security protocols. You're head of biosecurity. You have access." Silence. Then, "Yes, I have access. But Lucas, you need to understand what you're asking. Phoenix Protocol isn't just CDC Black Ops. It goes higher. Military. Intelligence. Politicians who've been funding this for decades. If we do this, if we go in there, we're declaring war on people who have the resources to erase us from existence. They already declared war when they took my brother. When they threatened my daughter. When they turned Sarah into a prisoner for doing the right thing." Lucas's voice was ice. "I'm just finishing it." Another pause. "Where are you?" "Decatur Clubhouse. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't leave. Don't call anyone else. Phoenix Protocol monitors everything." The line went dead. Lucas turned to Amelia. "My ex-wife is coming. She's going to help us get your mom and Derek out. Do you trust her?" It was a good question. The kind of question that kept you alive in a world where trust was currency and betrayal was common as breathing. "I trust that she loved Derek like a brother," Lucas said carefully. "And I trust that she hates Phoenix Protocol as much as we do. Beyond that, we'll see." They waited in tense silence. Lucas used the time to check weapons, plan routes, memorize the facility blueprints Nina had sent to his phone, encrypted, detailed, marked with guard rotations and security checkpoints. 19 minutes later, headlights swept across the clubhouse windows. Nina Rodriguez stepped through the door looking exactly like Lucas remembered. Sharp features, dark hair pulled back, eyes that missed nothing. She'd aged well, carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd spent years navigating dangerous spaces. Her eyes found Amelia first. Softened. "You look just like your mother. Sarah showed me pictures. You were 8, I think. Derek carried them everywhere." "You knew about me," Amelia said. "Not a question. I've known for 8 years. I've helped Derek protect you from a distance. Made sure Phoenix Protocol surveillance on your mother didn't extend to you. Falsified some medical records when they tried to flag you for genetic testing." Nina moved closer, knelt in front of Amelia. "Your uncle loves you very much. Everything he's done, every year he's spent in that cell, has been to keep you and your mother safe." Tears streamed down Amelia's face. "Then why didn't he get us out?" "Because the moment he tried, Vance would have killed you all. Derek was playing a long game, gathering evidence, building a case, waiting for the right moment." Nina stood, turned to Lucas. That moment is now. Sarah's execution is scheduled for 48 hours. But there's something you don't know. Something Derek only told me yesterday. What? The execution isn't real. It's bait. Nina's expression was grim. Vance doesn't want Sarah dead. She wants Amelia. The girl is the key to everything. The access codes, the genetic encryption, the leverage over Sarah. The execution threat is designed to force Amelia into surrendering voluntarily. Once they have her, they'll keep Sarah alive long enough to extract the activation sequence, then kill them both. Lucas felt his daughter stiffen beside him. We're not giving them Amelia. I know. That's why we're going in tonight. Not in 48 hours. Tonight, while they're still setting up their trap, before their security is at full strength. Nina pulled out a tablet, displayed a schematic. Shift change happens at 0400 hours. We'll have a 10-minute window when both teams are distracted with handoff protocols. I can get you into the facility using my credentials. But Lucas, she looked at him seriously. This is a one-way trip. Once we're inside, once they realize what we're doing, they'll lock down the entire building. We'll have to fight our way out. And there's a good chance none of us survive. I don't care about survival, Lucas said. I care about getting my brother and Sarah out. Everything else is negotiable. Nina nodded. Then we move in 3 hours. I'll drive. My vehicle has CDC clearance. Lucas, you'll need to be in the trunk with weapons until we're past the outer checkpoint. Amelia stays in the back seat, visible. They're looking for her traveling with unknown adults. They won't be looking for her traveling with me. What about inside? Lucas asked. I guide you to level 3, extract Sarah. You continue to level 4, extract Derek. We converge at the main elevator, use my override to reach the underground parking garage, and pray we make it to the vehicle before they mobilize a full response. That's not a plan. That's a suicide run. You have a better idea? Nina's eyes challenged him. Lucas didn't. Because she was right, this was suicide. But it was suicide with a purpose. Suicide with a goal. The kind of death that mattered. He looked at Amelia, his daughter, 14 years old, and already carrying weight that would break most adults. You don't have to come, he told her. I can find somewhere safe, somewhere they won't. I'm coming. Amelia's voice was steel. Mom sacrificed everything for me. Uncle Derek spent 12 years in hell for me. I'm not hiding while you risk your lives. I'm coming. And if we die together. As a family, Lucas felt something crack in his chest. Pride. Terror. Love for a daughter he'd only known for 3 hours, but would die for without hesitation. Okay, he said quietly. We go in 3 hours. We get them out. And then we burn Phoenix Protocol to the ground. Nina started to respond when her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, and her face went pale. What? Lucas demanded. Nina turned the phone so they could see. A video message. Sender. Unknown. She hit play. The screen showed a concrete cell. Derek Morrison chained to a chair, looking directly at the camera. Behind him stood Colonel Patricia Vance, silver-haired, composed, smiling like a grandmother at a church picnic instead of the architect of genocide. Derek's voice was rough, exhausted, but carried an urgency that made Lucas's heart stop. Luke. Nina. If you're watching this, you're planning a rescue. Don't. It's a trap. The facility you're planning to infiltrate? It's not where they're keeping Sarah. They moved her 6 hours ago to a secondary location. The execution threat is real, but it's not happening in 48 hours. It's happening in 6 hours. And the only way to stop it is to give them what they want. Vance leaned into frame. Hello, Lucas. Hello, Amelia. I believe we should meet. Face to face. No weapons. No tricks. Just a conversation about your family's future. You have 4 hours to decide. The coordinates are attached to this message. Come alone, just you and the girl. Or watch Sarah Chun die on a live stream that goes out to every intelligence agency in the world, proving that Phoenix Protocol doesn't negotiate with traitors. The video ended. Lucas, Nina, and Amelia stared at each other in horror. 6 hours. Not 48. And Derek, his brother, his blood, had just told them walking into the facility was suicide, which meant they were out of options, out of time, and about to make a choice that would either save everyone or doom them all. The coordinates led to a location that made Lucas's tactical instincts scream. Piedmont Park, the open-air amphitheater near the lake. Zero cover. Multiple sight lines. The kind of place where snipers could position themselves in a dozen different locations and you'd never see them coming. Perfect kill zone. This is insane, Nina said, driving her Honda sedan through pre-dawn Atlanta streets. Vance wants you out in the open. Vulnerable. She's not planning to negotiate. She's planning to capture Amelia and eliminate everyone else. Lucas sat in the passenger seat, the Glock heavy against his ribs, counting down the minutes. They had 2 hours before Sarah's execution. 2 hours to figure out how to beat an unbeatable situation. In the back seat, Amelia clutched the vial of her mother's bone marrow like a rosary. She hadn't spoken since they'd left the clubhouse, her face pale, her eyes carrying the weight of impossible mathematics. Surrender and maybe save her mother, or run and definitely watch her die. There's another option, Nina said quietly, glancing at Lucas. One Derek and I discussed years ago. A failsafe if everything went wrong. I'm listening. Phoenix Protocol's entire operation depends on secrecy. Black budgets. Classified facilities. Plausible deniability. But if we expose them publicly, undeniably, with evidence that can't be buried, they lose their protection. Vance loses her power. Sarah's encrypted files, Lucas said. Exactly. The access codes are in Amelia's DNA. But I have the biometric scanner at the CDC that can extract them. It's a level 5 security system, reads genetic sequences, cross-references them against stored samples. If we can get Amelia to the lab, run her blood through the scanner, we can retrieve the codes and upload Sarah's files to every news outlet, every government watchdog, every place Vance can't reach. Amelia leaned forward. How long would that take? The scan? 3 minutes. The upload? Another 5. 8 minutes total. And Sarah dies in 2 hours, Lucas said flatly. We don't have time to go to the CDC and make it to Vance's meeting. No, Nina agreed. But we have time to split up. Lucas, you take Amelia to the meeting. Keep Vance talking, by time. I'll go to the CDC, access the lab, prepare the scanner. The moment you can get Amelia away from Vance, even for 30 seconds, you bring her to me. We run the scan, upload the files, and suddenly Phoenix Protocol's entire operation is exposed. Vance loses her leverage. She can't kill Sarah without proving every allegation in those files is true. Lucas processed this, running probability calculations. Vance will have contractors surrounding the amphitheater, armed, watching every exit. The second I try to leave with Amelia, they'll open fire. Then we need a distraction, something big enough to give you an opening. Nina's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I have friends at the CDC. Researchers who've suspected Phoenix Protocol exists but never had proof. If I tell them what's happening, if I can convince them to create a scene, a walkout, a protest, something that draws media attention to the facility, it might buy you the chaos you need. Might, Lucas repeated. It's the best option we have. It wasn't a good option. It was a desperate gamble stacked on top of impossible odds. But Lucas had spent 20 years taking desperate gambles, and he was still alive. Sometimes that had to be enough. Okay, he said. You go to the CDC. Prepare the scanner. Get your people ready. Amelia and I will meet Vance. Keep her engaged. When the moment comes, we run. Nina pulled over 3 blocks from Piedmont Park. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of gray and pink that looked too peaceful for what was about to happen. She turned to face them, her expression carrying years of regret and determination. Lucas, I need you to know something. The night Derek supposedly died, I knew. I knew he was alive, knew the funeral was a lie, knew you were mourning someone who was still breathing. And I held you anyway. Let you grieve. Signed that death certificate with steady hands. Why are you telling me this now? Because if this goes wrong, if we don't make it out, I need you to understand that everything I've done, every lie, every manipulation, every moment of the past 12 years, was to protect the people Derek loved. You, Sarah, Amelia. He made me promise that if he couldn't keep you safe, I would. Nina's voice cracked. I'm sorry for the deception, but I'm not sorry for keeping you alive. Lucas looked at this woman he'd married, divorced, and spent years trying to forget. Saw the truth in her eyes, the weight she'd carried, the secrets that had cost her pieces of herself. If we survive this, he said quietly, we're going to have a long conversation about trust and lies and what we owe each other. But right now, thank you for protecting my family when I didn't know they needed protecting. Nina nodded, tears streaming down her face. She handed Lucas a burner phone. Speed dial 1. The moment you're clear, call me. I'll have everything ready. She turned to Amelia. Your mother is the bravest person I've ever met. And Derek talks about you constantly. Every conversation for 8 years, he finds a way to mention something you did, something funny you said, how proud he is of you. You're loved, Amelia. More than you know. More than any of us have been able to show you. Remember that when things get hard. Amelia's voice was barely a whisper. Will we see each other again? I don't know, sweetheart. But I'm going to fight like hell to make sure we do. Nina drove away, her taillights disappearing into morning traffic. Lucas and Amelia walked the remaining blocks to Piedmont Park in silence. The amphitheater sat empty this early, curved stone seating descending toward a small stage where summer concerts played to crowds that seemed like memories from another life. Colonel Patricia Vance stood center stage, flanked by 4 contractors in tactical gear. No attempt at concealment. No pretense of subtlety. Just raw power and the certainty that came from holding all the cards. Lucas Morrison, Vance called out as they approached. And young Amelia. Thank you for being punctual. I respect that in people. Lucas kept Amelia behind him, his hand near the Glock. Where's Sarah? Safe. For now. In a facility you'll never find, being kept comfortable and alive pending the outcome of our conversation. Vance gestured to the empty seats. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. I'll stand. Suit yourself. Vance's smile never wavered. I'll be direct. Phoenix Protocol represents decades of research and billions in funding. Phase 2 will save countless American lives by eliminating threats before they metastasize into violence. We're not villains, Mr. Morrison. We're pragmatists working to ensure national security in an increasingly dangerous world. You're talking about murdering 2 million people. I'm talking about preventing 2 million future casualties. Gang violence, domestic terrorism, social instability that costs thousands of lives annually. The populations we're targeting are statistical inevitabilities. They will cause harm. We're simply accelerating an unavoidable outcome while minimizing collateral damage. Lucas felt sick. You don't get to decide who lives and dies based on genetics and zip codes. Someone has to make hard choices. Someone always does. Vance's expression hardened. But I didn't bring you here for a philosophical debate. I brought you here to make an exchange. Amelia comes with me voluntarily, provides the access codes we need, and Sarah Chun walks free. Everyone lives. Phase 2 proceeds with minimal disruption. Simple. And if I refuse, then Sarah dies in. Vance checked her watch. 97 minutes. And we hunt Amelia down anyway. But without Sarah to keep her compliant, without the leverage of her mother's survival, we'll have to extract the codes through more invasive methods. Methods that a 14-year-old girl won't survive. Amelia stepped out from behind Lucas. I'll do it. No. Lucas grabbed her arm. Amelia, I won't let them kill Mom. Her voice was steady, certain. If giving them what they want means she lives, then that's what I'll do. They'll kill you both anyway, Lucas said urgently. The moment they have the codes, you and Sarah become liabilities. Perhaps, Vance acknowledged. Or perhaps I'm a woman of my word. Only one way to find out, Amelia. Come with me now, and your mother goes free in 24 hours. Stay with your father, and she dies today. Lucas's mind raced through options, angles, desperate plays. But every path led to the same conclusion. Vance held all the power, all the leverage, all the pieces that mattered. Except one. The vial of bone marrow in Amelia's pocket. The activation sequence Phoenix Protocol needed. If they could destroy it, if they could make Phase 2 impossible, Vance would have no reason to keep Sarah alive, but she'd also have no way to launch the attack. Millions would be saved at the cost of one life. Terrible mathematics. The kind that broke people who tried to calculate them. Lucas pulled the vial from Amelia's pocket. You want this? He held it up. Sarah's bone marrow? The activation sequence? Come get it. He threw the vial high, a perfect arc toward the lake 40 yards away. It tumbled through the air, catching dawn light, carrying Vance's entire operation in fragile glass. The contractors moved instantly, sprinting toward the lake, desperate to catch it before it hit water and shattered and made Phase 2 impossible. Run! Lucas grabbed Amelia's hand and bolted. They ran through the park, away from the amphitheater, toward the street where morning traffic was building. Behind them, Lucas heard Vance screaming orders, heard boots pounding stone, heard the contractors abandoning the vile chase to pursue the more valuable target. His daughter. Lucas's phone buzzed. Nina's voice, urgent. Lucas. The CDC, something's wrong. Vance has people here. They're locking down the building. They knew we were coming. Nina, get out. I can't. They've sealed the exits. They're coming for. Gunfire. Screams. The phone went dead. Lucas and Amelia burst onto the street. A black SUV screeched to a stop in front of them, blocking their path. Behind them, Vance's contractors closed in. They were trapped. The SUV's door opened. Derek Morrison stepped out. Not chained. Not beaten. Standing tall, wearing a Phoenix Protocol contractor uniform, holding a weapon with the ease of someone who'd never stopped being operational. His eyes met Lucas's, and in them Lucas saw something that made his blood freeze. I'm sorry, brother, Derek said quietly, but this is bigger than family. Get in the vehicle. Both of you. It's time you understood what I've really been doing for the past 12 years. Lucas didn't move. The Glock was in his hand before conscious thought registered. Muscle memory from 20 years of survival, from situations where hesitation meant death. The barrel pointed at his brother's chest. His finger rested on the trigger with the kind of steady pressure that separated professionals from amateurs. Luke, put the gun down. Derek's voice was calm, measured, carrying none of the desperation from the video message. This was someone else entirely. Someone harder. Someone who'd spent 12 years becoming something Lucas didn't recognize. You're working for them. The words tasted like poison in Lucas's mouth. All of it. The videos, the messages, the rescue plan. It was all theater. You've been Phoenix Protocol from the beginning. It's more complicated than that. Then uncomplicated. Lucas shifted slightly, positioning himself between Derek and Amelia. Behind them, Vance's contractors had formed a perimeter, weapons raised but holding fire, waiting for Derek's signal. You've got 30 seconds before I decide you're just another target. Derek's expression didn't change. You won't shoot me. Try me. For a long moment, they stood frozen, two brothers separated by 12 years of lies and a gun barrel that represented every betrayal, every moment of grief Lucas had suffered over an empty coffin. Then Derek lowered his weapon. Slowly, deliberately. You're right, he said quietly. I've been Phoenix Protocol for 12 years. But not the way you think. Not the way Vance thinks either. Explain. The Afghanistan mission was real. The ambush was real. My unit died. 11 good men, brothers I'd served with for 3 years. I survived because I was supposed to survive. Phoenix Protocol arranged the attack, killed my team, and offered me a choice. Work for them, or they'd kill Sarah and the daughter I'd only just learned existed. Lucas's grip on the gun tightened. Sarah told you about Amelia? She found me 2 weeks before deployment. Told me I had a brother who'd gotten her pregnant and disappeared. Told me Phoenix Protocol had threatened both of you, forced her to stay silent. She begged me to keep you safe, to watch over Amelia if anything happened to her. Derek's voice cracked slightly. So I made a deal with the devil. I'd work for Phoenix Protocol, become their operative, do whatever they needed. In exchange, they'd leave you alone. Let you live your life with the Hell's Angels, never knowing you had a daughter, never becoming a target. Amelia's hand found Lucas's arm. Uncle Derek was protecting us. He was protecting his brother, Derek corrected, looking at Lucas. You. The kid who took the beatings from Dad, so I wouldn't have to. The brother who taught me how to ride, how to fight, how to survive. I owed you everything, Luke. And when Phoenix Protocol gave me a choice between my life and yours, it wasn't even close. So you became their weapon, Lucas said bitterly. I became their insider. Derek's eyes hardened. For 12 years, I've been their perfect operative. I've run black ops in 7 countries, eliminated targets they considered threats, helped develop operational protocols for Phase 2. And the entire time, I've been documenting everything, building a case, gathering evidence that could bring down the whole corrupt machine. The encrypted files Sarah created were based on data I'd been feeding her for 8 years. Every communication, every order, every piece of Phoenix protocol structure. Derek gestured to the contractors surrounding them. These men, they think they're protecting the program. They don't know I've been recording their conversations, tracking their movements, building profiles on every participant from Vance down to the lowest level technician. Lucas wanted to believe him. Wanted to see his brother as a hero playing the long game. But 12 years of lies made trust feel like quicksand. If that's true, Lucas said slowly, then why are we standing here with guns pointed at my daughter? Why is Sarah scheduled for execution in? He checked his watch. 73 minutes. Why does this feel like you're about to hand us over? Because I am. Derek's words landed like hammer blows. I'm taking you to the facility where Sarah's being held. But not as prisoners. As witnesses. Witnesses to what? Her execution. Derek's expression was haunted. Vance scheduled it for 0900 hours. Live broadcast to every Phoenix Protocol operational cell worldwide. Proof that traitors get punished. Proof that the program is stronger than any individual. Amelia made a sound. Not quite a scream. More like air being forced from lungs that had forgotten how to breathe. Lucas pulled her closer, his gun still trained on Derek. You're insane if you think I'm letting that happen. I don't want it to happen. Derek's voice rose, finally showing cracks in his composure. Sarah is. She's everything, Luke. She's brilliant and brave, and the only person besides you who's ever looked at me like I was worth saving. I love her. Have loved her for 8 years. And watching her die is going to destroy me. Then why? Because it's the only way to stop Phase 2. Derek cut him off. Vance needs the activation sequence from Sarah's bone marrow, but she also needs absolute control over the program. If Sarah dies before giving up that sequence, Phase 2 becomes impossible. 2 million people live. And the evidence I've gathered, the files Sarah created, they go public automatically upon her death. Insurance policy she set up weeks ago. The moment her heart stops, every piece of Phoenix Protocol's operation uploads to servers across 6 continents. The mathematics clicked into place in Lucas's mind. Terrible, brutal mathematics. Sarah dies, Phase 2 fails, Phoenix Protocol gets exposed. Sarah lives. Vance extracts the activation sequence. 2 million people die. You're asking us to watch her be executed, Lucas said slowly. To do nothing while the mother of my child dies. I'm asking you to save 2 million lives. Derek's voice broke. I'm asking you to make the choice I've been making for 12 years. Sacrifice one person you love to protect millions you'll never meet. No. Amelia stepped forward, her voice steel. There's another way. Both brothers looked at her. The bone marrow vial Uncle Derek just saw Uncle Lucas throw, that was a fake. Mom gave me 2 vials 3 weeks ago. One real, one filled with saline solution and red dye. She told me if we ever got cornered, throw the fake. Make them think Phase 2 is impossible. By time, Lucas felt his world tilt. You still have the real vial? Amelia pulled it from her sock. Clever hiding spot. The kind of practical thinking that came from Sarah's brilliance and Derek's tactical training. If I give them this, Amelia continued, Vance gets what she wants. But Mom stays alive, right? That was the deal. I cooperate, Mom lives. Vance is lying, Derek said. The moment she has the activation sequence, both you and Sarah become liabilities. So we make a different deal? Amelia's eyes were bright with desperate calculation. Uncle Derek, you've been inside Phoenix Protocol for 12 years. You know their systems, their protocols. If we give them the vial, if we let them think they've won, can you get us out? Can you get Mom out before they kill her? Derek's expression shifted, tactical assessment replacing emotional devastation. Maybe. There's a small window after Sarah's execution is called off. 30, maybe 45 minutes while they're processing the bone marrow, running tests to verify it's authentic. Security will be focused on the lab. If I can get Sarah out of her cell during that window, If we can reach the underground garage before they realize what's happening. That's not a plan, Lucas said. That's Hope wearing tactical gear. It's the only option that doesn't involve watching Sarah die. Derek looked at his brother. Luke, I know you don't trust me. I've given you every reason not to. But I'm begging you. Trust me one more time. Let me try to save her. Let me do one good thing before this all ends. Lucas studied his brother. Looked for the lie, the betrayal, the twist that would make this another trap. But all he saw was a man who'd spent 12 years in hell making impossible choices, wearing away pieces of himself until only the mission remained. A man who looked terrifyingly like what Lucas might become if he lost everyone he loved. If this goes wrong, Lucas said quietly, if you're lying to me, if Sarah dies because I trusted you, then you kill me. Derek's voice was flat. I'll hand you the gun myself. But right now, we're wasting time. Sarah's execution is in 70 minutes. We need to move. Lucas looked at Amelia, his daughter, 14 years old, and already carrying weight that would break most adults. It's your choice, he told her. Your mother's life. Your call. Amelia held up the vial. We try Uncle Derek's plan. We give them what they want, get Mom out, and pray we're all fast enough to survive what comes next. Okay. Lucas lowered his gun, holstered it, looked at Derek. Where's the facility? Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. 3 levels underground. Accessible through a maintenance tunnel in the international terminal. Derek gestured to the SUV. Get in. We've got 40 minutes to get there, get through security, and position ourselves for extraction. They climbed into the vehicle. Vance's contractors followed in 2 additional SUVs. Insurance, Lucas realized. Derek might be playing both sides, but Vance wasn't stupid enough to trust him completely. The drive took 35 minutes. Morning traffic thick, every red light feeling like another minute of Sarah's life ticking away. Derek drove in silence, his jaw clenched, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Lucas sat in back with Amelia, holding her hand, feeling the tremor that ran through her entire body. His daughter, the child he'd never known existed. The girl who was about to watch her mother face execution in a desperate gamble that might save millions or doom them all. I'm scared, Amelia whispered. Me too, Lucas admitted. But your mom, Sarah, she's one of the strongest people I've ever met. If anyone can survive this, it's her. What if she doesn't? Lucas didn't have an answer for that. Because if Sarah died, if this plan failed, he'd be left with a daughter who'd lost her mother and an uncle who'd failed to save the woman he loved. The weight of that failure would break all of them. They arrived at the airport. Derek guided them through a service entrance, down a maintenance corridor that smelled like jet fuel and industrial cleaning solution. Security checkpoints every 100 feet. Biometric scanners, armed guards, the kind of military-grade protection that made Lucas's tactical instincts scream. But Derek's credentials worked. His face got them through every checkpoint. His authority parted security like water. They descended 3 levels underground, the air growing colder, the fluorescent lights casting everything in harsh white that made everyone look corpse pale. Finally, they reached a secure viewing room. One-way glass looking into a clinical white chamber. In the center of the chamber, strapped to a medical table, was Sarah Chun. She looked smaller than Lucas remembered. Thinner. Her face bruised. Her arms marked with 4 insertion sites. But her eyes, when they opened and focused on the glass, carried the same fierce intelligence he'd fallen for 15 years ago. Derek's voice came through a speaker system. Sarah, we're here. All of us. Sarah's eyes found Amelia through the glass. Tears streamed down her face. She mouthed words, I love you. Colonel Vance entered the chamber, flanked by 2 medical technicians. She looked at Sarah with something almost like sympathy. Dr. Chun, your daughter has agreed to provide the activation sequence in exchange for your release. A wise choice. I'm pleased we could reach an accommodation. Sarah's eyes snapped to the glass, to where she couldn't see them but knew they were watching. Her expression shifted, fear replacing relief. No, Sarah said. Amelia, no. Don't give them anything. Let me die? Please, baby, let me. One of the technicians injected something into Sarah's fore. Her words slurred, stopped. Sedation taking hold. Vance looked directly at the one-way glass. Bring me the vial, Amelia. And your mother walks out of here alive. You have my word. Derek turned to Amelia. Last chance to change your mind. Amelia's hand shook as she pulled out the vial. I trust you, Uncle Derek. Save my mom. Derek took the vial, left the viewing room. Lucas and Amelia watched through the glass as Derek entered the chamber, handed the vial to Vance. Watched as Vance held it up to the light, smiled with satisfaction. Excellent, Vance said. Take Dr. Chun to processing. Full medical evaluation. Once we verified the bone marrow is authentic, she'll be released as promised. The technicians began unhooking Sarah's restraints. Lucas felt hope surge. Maybe Derek's plan would actually work. Maybe they'd get Sarah out, expose Phoenix Protocol, save everyone. Then Vance pulled out a syringe. However, she continued, I should mention that Dr. Chun has been exposed to a modified version of our pathogen. Dormant strain, activated only by specific neural stimulation. The moment she leaves this facility, the moment she attempts to speak to anyone about Phoenix Protocol, her brain will hemorrhage. Death within 30 seconds. Completely untraceable. She injected the contents into Sarah's fore. So yes, Amelia, your mother will leave here alive. But she'll never be able to expose us. She'll never be able to testify. She'll live the rest of her life knowing that one wrong word, one attempt to reveal the truth, and she dies screaming. Derek lunged at Vance, but the contractors were faster. They tackled him, pinned him to the floor. Vance looked at the one-way glass again. Bring the girl. Now. Or I activate the pathogen remotely, and Sarah dies in the next 60 seconds. Lucas felt the trap close around them. Every exit blocked. Every option eliminated. Vance had played them perfectly. The viewing room door opened. Four contractors entered, weapons raised. Amelia Chun, one of them said, You're coming with us. Amelia looked at Lucas, her eyes wide with terror. Dad, I'm sorry, sweetheart. Lucas's voice broke. I'm so sorry. The contractors grabbed Amelia, began pulling her toward the door. And then the lights went out. Complete darkness. Emergency systems failing. Every electronic system in the facility dying simultaneously. Through the blackness, Lucas heard Nina's voice over the PA system, weak, injured, but triumphant. Lucas, I got to the main power grid. Cutting everything. You've got maybe 90 seconds before backup generators kick in. Get Sarah. Get Amelia. Get out. Chaos erupted. Gunfire in the dark. Shouting. Bodies colliding. Lucas moved on instinct, muscle memory from 20 years of violence. Found Amelia by touch, pulled her close. Found the door, the corridor beyond. Derek, he shouted into the darkness. Where are you? Getting Sarah. Derek's voice from somewhere ahead. Follow my voice. They ran through the blackened facility, hands on walls, stumbling over debris, every second expecting bullets to find them in the dark. Emergency lights flickered on, red, dim, barely enough to see. Derek appeared, carrying Sarah's unconscious body. Behind him, Vance and a dozen contractors. This way, Derek sprinted toward the maintenance tunnel. They ran. All of them. Through corridors that seemed to stretch forever, through doorways that led to more corridors, through a maze designed to trap people who didn't know the way out. But Derek knew the way. They burst into the tunnel, the airport's hum loud above them. Behind them, Vance's voice echoed. Seal the exits. Don't let them escape. Metal doors began sliding shut. They weren't going to make it. The final door was closing. 3 feet, 2 feet, 18 inches of clearance remaining. Derek shoved Sarah through first, then Amelia. Lucas Dove rolled through with inches to spare. Derek was still on the other side. Go! Derek shouted through the narrowing gap. Take care of them, Luke. Tell Sarah I. The door sealed shut with a sound like a coffin closing. Lucas pounded on the metal. Derek. Derek. No response. Just silence. And somewhere in that sealed facility, his brother was alone with Vance and her contractors. Alone, surrounded, with no way out. Lucas's fists hammered against the sealed metal door until his knuckles bled, until Amelia's hands pulled him away, until the reality settled over him like concrete. Derek was gone. trapped on the other side with Vance and a facility full of contractors who'd spent 12 years believing he was one of them, who now knew he'd betrayed everything Phoenix Protocol stood for. They'd kill him. Slowly. Make an example. Dad, we have to move. Amelia's voice cut through his rage. Uncle Derek bought us time. We can't waste it. Sarah stirred in Lucas's arms, her eyes fluttering open, unfocused from sedation. When she saw him, really saw him for the first time in 15 years, her face crumpled. Lucas, she whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I never told you about. Later, he lifted her gently, cradled her like she weighed nothing. Right now we run. Explanations come after survival. They moved through the tunnel, Amelia leading the way with a flashlight from Lucas's jacket. The girl had her mother's mind, her uncle's tactical thinking, checking corners, listening for pursuit, moving with purpose despite the fear Lucas could see trembling through her frame. They emerged in the International Terminal's maintenance section. Early morning travelers rushed past, oblivious to the life-and-death chase happening in the spaces between their normal world. Lucas's burner phone buzzed. Nina. Lucas, did you make it out? We're in the terminal. Sarah's with us. Derek's, his voice caught. Derek's still inside. They sealed the facility. Silence. Then, I'm downloading everything. Every file Derek compiled, every piece of evidence Sarah created. It's uploading now to the FBI, DOD, every news outlet in the country. Phoenix Protocol is burning, Lucas. Vance can't stop it. What about the pathogen in Sarah's system? Vance said, a bluff. There is no neural-activated pathogen. I checked the medical database. They gave her a sedative, nothing more. Vance was betting you wouldn't call her bluff. Nina coughed, the sound wet and painful. But Lucas, I'm not getting out. They found me in the server room. I've barricaded the door, but they're breaking through. I've got maybe 3 minutes. Nina, tell Derek, her voice broke. Tell him I kept my promise. Kept you all safe. Tell him it was worth it. The line went dead. Lucas wanted to scream, to punch through walls, to tear apart everything Vance had built with his bare hands. But Amelia was tugging his arm. Sarah was barely conscious, and somewhere behind them contractors were mobilizing. They ran. Out of the airport, into the parking garage, into a stolen SUV Lucas hot-wired in 45 seconds. He drove like a man possessed, taking turns that made the tires scream, weaving through traffic that blurred into meaningless obstacles. Sarah's phone, somehow still in her pocket, buzzed constantly. News alerts. FBI raid on CDC facility. Colonel Patricia Vance arrested. Phoenix Protocol exposed. They'd won, but it felt like losing. 6 months later, the courtroom in downtown Atlanta was packed. Lucas sat in the front row, Amelia beside him, watching Sarah testify. She'd spent 6 months recovering, physically from the sedatives and captivity, emotionally from the weight of watching Nina die to save them all. But today, her voice was steady, strong, detailing every aspect of Phoenix Protocol, every crime, every victim. Vance sat at the defense table, silver hair perfect, expression neutral. Even now, even facing life in prison, she carried herself like someone who'd simply lost a game she'd been willing to play. The prosecutor asked Sarah about Derek Morrison. Derek spent 12 years undercover, Sarah said, her eyes finding Lucas in the gallery. Pretending to be Phoenix Protocol's perfect operative while documenting their crimes. He saved countless lives. And when the moment came, he sacrificed himself so we could escape. Could you elaborate on that sacrifice? Sarah's voice trembled. He stayed behind, sealed in the facility, knowing they'd kill him for his betrayal. He chose our lives over his own. Lucas felt Amelia's hand find his, squeezed tight. They'd heard nothing about Derek for 6 months. No body recovered. No confirmation of death. The facility had been raided, but Derek wasn't among the prisoners released. Gone. Like he'd been 12 years ago. Except this time, Lucas couldn't even bury an empty coffin. The trial continued. Testimony from former operatives. Evidence that buried Phoenix Protocol so deep it would never rise again. Vance was found guilty on 47 counts. Life in prison without parole. Justice, Lucas supposed. But it felt hollow without his brother there to see it. 3 weeks after the trial, Lucas was teaching Amelia to ride Derek's restored bike in an empty parking lot in Chicago. She was good. Natural balance, quick reflexes, Sarah's intelligence applied to motorcycle mechanics. She'd be better than Lucas soon. Lean into the turn, he called out. Trust the bike. Amelia circled him, grinning, the first real smile he'd seen since the airport. She was healing. They all were. Slowly. Sarah emerged from Lucas's apartment building, carrying coffee and looking more like the woman he'd met 15 years ago. They'd been taking things slow, relearning each other, building something real instead of running from conspiracies. She was moving to Chicago next month. They'd enrolled Amelia in a good school, started therapy, all three of them. Building a family from the wreckage Phoenix Protocol had left behind. She's a natural, Sarah said, slipping her hand into Lucas's. Gets it from her uncle. They watched in comfortable silence as Amelia practiced figure eights. Then Lucas's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. Heavy breathing. Pain. Then a voice he'd thought he'd never hear again. Luke. Derek. Lucas's hand trembled. Where are you? Chicago. Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Room 437. Derek coughed. Took me 6 months to crawl out of that facility. 6 months of hiding, healing, making my way back. I'm in bad shape, brother. Real bad. But I'm home. Lucas was already running for his truck, Sarah and Amelia chasing after him. They made it to Northwestern in 12 minutes. Room 437. Lucas pushed through the door and found his brother. Derek looked like he'd been through a war. Skeletal. Scarred. Missing 2 fingers on his left hand and walking with a cane. But alive. Impossibly, miraculously alive. You look like hell, Lucas managed. You should see the other guys. Derek tried to smile. Nina? Did she? She died getting us out, Lucas said quietly. Bought us time. Made sure we survived. Her last words were about you. That she kept her promise. Derek's face crumpled. 12 years of holding himself together, of playing the perfect operative, of sacrificing everything. It all broke at once. Lucas crossed the room, pulled his brother into a careful hug, and let Derek sob against his shoulder the way he used to when they were kids, and the world was too heavy. I'm sorry, Derek whispered. For everything. For the lies, for leaving, for. You saved us, Lucas interrupted. Saved Amelia. Saved Sarah. Saved 2 million people who'll never know your name. You're a goddamn hero, Derek. I'm a disaster. You're my brother. And you're home. Sarah appeared in the doorway, Amelia beside her. When Derek saw Sarah, something shifted in his expression. Pain and love and relief all tangled together. Sarah, I thought, when I couldn't find you. We're here. Sarah moved to the bed, took Derek's remaining hand. We're all here. Together. Amelia climbed onto the bed carefully, nestled against her uncle. You came back. Promised I would. Derek's voice was hoarse. Had to make sure you learned to ride that bike properly. Can't have Lucas teaching you bad habits. Hey, Lucas protested, but he was grinning. Actually grinning. They stayed like that, broken, healing, but together, until the nurses kicked them out visiting hours later. 1 year later, Lucas stood in his garage in Chicago, watching Derek and Amelia work on the bike together. Derek's prosthetic fingers weren't as precise as his original hand, but they worked well enough. Amelia handed him tools, asked questions, absorbed knowledge like her mother had taught her. Sarah appeared beside Lucas, her hand finding his. They'd gotten married 3 months ago. Small ceremony. Just family. Derek as best man, Amelia as maid of honor. Think they're okay? Sarah asked, watching her daughter and brother-in-law bond over carburetors. I think they're healing. Lucas pulled her close. We all are. Derek looked up, caught Lucas watching, and smiled. Genuine, warm, carrying none of the darkness that had lived in him for so long. You two going to help or just stand there looking romantic? Derek called out. We're supervising, Lucas shot back. Slackers. Amelia laughed, the sound bright and clear and full of the future they'd all fought to give her. Outside, Chicago winter was settling in. But inside the garage, surrounded by family that had been broken and remade, Lucas felt warm. Phoenix Protocol was ash. Vance was in prison. Nina's sacrifice had saved millions. And the Morrison family, expanded, scarred, but unbroken, was finally home. Derek caught Lucas's eye and mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Lucas nodded. Because that's what brothers did. They saved each other. They survived together. They built futures from the wreckage of impossible choices. And they never, ever stopped fighting for the people they loved. Amelia fired up the bike, the engine roaring to life. And in that sound, Lucas heard everything. Hope, survival, family, and the promise that tomorrow would be better than today. They'd earned that promise with blood and sacrifice and love. And they'd protect it with everything they had left.